Hello, this is Mark from IMNG Organic, and I want to show you how I'm going to be planting up my romaine lettuce in the middle of July in zone 6B in a step-by-step process. We are first starting with a clear area that's about, let's say, 5 feet wide and about 100 feet long. Here I have my drip tape rolled out, and it's sitting on top of, I kind of use it, I thought it was pretty interesting, is the two old car jack stands, and I have a metal pipe or a big metal bolt that runs through the roll, and this way it rolls out like almost like a roll of paper towels. And the drip tape is, it has a hole in the bottom, and the little white line that tells you which side is up and down, and I'll show you a close-up of that in a little bit. And there's a hole every, say, 6 to 8 inches. I have my two ends finished, and let's take a closer look. And here we have the fitting at the end of the drip line. Simply, you just turn this, and this loosens up, and this is the end of the drip tape. And underneath is a white line, and there's a hole about every 6 to 8 inches, like I mentioned before. And what it just does, it just slides onto this fitting here, this barb fitting, goes in here, and then it compresses down when you spin the orange nut onto it. And then I have a bungee cord that's attached to a pole to keep the line straight and taut. And this is where the irrigation drip line begins. The black plastic line with the blue stripe on is our main water line, and then we just take it and we punch a hole through it, and then again a barb fitting goes in there, and we just spin the nuts on both ends and attach the lines, and it's all set to go. And it has a valve on it which is closed right now, and the open position is just simply turning it. I have my roll of paper, and I'm gonna roll it out about, say, 18 feet at a time, and then I'm just gonna place a cattle panel on top, which is like 16 feet long, and then do another, say, 18 feet, and then continue the process down the row. I have all my cattle panels laid out. I only have 5 of them that I have extra sitting around to hold the paper down, and then I'm going to come up with maybe if I can, a little bit better system towards the end, so I don't have to use the cattle panels as much. I have the paper rolled out and 3 cattle panels on top already. That's a total of 54 feet, and it's easy to install because I have everything laid out ahead of time, and then I basically just roll out the paper and flip the cattle panel over to the side, to the top of it, and make sure everything's in the right position. I have my paper rolled out to 80 feet with the cattle panels holding it down and the 2 drip lines still underneath it, and I have some metal hoops up on top that are prefabbed and already bent already for me, and they're 40 inches wide, and I have them spaced every 30 inches down the length of the row, and they stand anywhere from say 12 inches up to 18 inches depending on the arch. I have my fabric row cover laid out, and I'm going to pull it over the hoops in a little bit, but I also want to show you is that I have some water lines here. I'm not using it for irrigation, but they are filled with water already, and I have them capped off on both ends so the water doesn't run out. What I'll do is when I pull the fabric over the hoops, I need something to weigh it down, so I figured I'll fill these water lines with water, and that will give me a nice steady contact to the soil so the fabric will not blow away. It worked out pretty good, very easy to install and pull over. What's nice about it is because you can go right down a line and move the flexible hose, fill it with water, and just put it right on top of the netting, and then when you're done with one side, just work your way back up the other side, and it's being held in place right now by that flexible hose with the water in it. And at this point I have everything set up ahead of time prior to planting, because I didn't want to plant the lettuce and then try to get the fabric over ahead of time. I think it's just a wiser choice to get everything set up before you start planting. So let's start planting. Here's my romaine lettuce I started from seed, and now we're just going to cut a hole in the paper and then plant each one up and properly space them. I removed the hose with the water in it, and so I can access the fabric, and I just put it up halfway, very easy to do, and I will plant this row on the right hand side all the way down for the simple reason it's on the west side, and then in the future I will plant the east side later on at a second planting. And also too, instead of planting side by side in 2 rows, you only use one line of drip tape all the way down the row, and then you can save water because you're only using the one side the full length, and then you can come back later on in another few weeks and do the other side and turn that line on. As you can see here, I cut my first hole. I just took a putty knife and made an X on it, and then I moved the soil out of the way, and then I'll take my first plant and plant it in there. Now we just take our plant, it goes right in there. Now they say not to plant it all the way down deep. You want to stop root rot, you want to leave it above the soil a little bit, so when it compresses down or shrinks in the soil, that it's still above the root, and this way you prevent root rot on lettuce plants. I want to show you also too at this angle the putty knife sitting on top of the cattle panel and the paper, and now you can see where the drip line is, where it comes out from underneath here by those 2 orange buttons there. Now you can see that it's not too far away from the drip line, and I just go right down the line and make sure it's close enough to that drip line, so when we turn the irrigation on, that the water goes through that drip line and also saturates our plants very nicely. And I'm spacing my romaine lettuce about a foot apart. I'm halfway done with my row right now, and the reason why I want to stop here, I want to explain also why I'm also putting the netting up, the insect netting. First of all, it's going to stop the biggest problem, which is rabbits, and I have plenty of them on the farm. Second of all, is it's going to hopefully reduce a little bit of the heat over the next month or so, so maybe the lettuce won't bolt. That's another good factor to it. It does allow enough sunlight, enough rain to go in there, and I'll demonstrate how much water goes through. I'll put the netting across, and then I'll put a garden hose or a sprinkler on top of it, and you can see how much it drips through. And also too, it might reduce even slugs coming through, because I have that fabric going across all the way to the ground and being held down, so I think the slugs might have a lesser chance of getting through that fabric because of just a physical barrier. And last but not least, we've had 3 hailstorms so far. Not big size hails, but significant enough to cause some damage. So I'm hoping that that will reduce it, and this netting is flexible enough that it will pretty much just bounce off. So now I'm going to give it a nice little drink of water before I cover it up. And you can see how when the paper gets wet, it adheres to the soil and makes a nice weed covering barrier there. And then I'll just do this up and down the line. And they inform me that the paper will not biodegrade until after 3 months, so I have plenty of time before before it biodegrades into the soil to harvest the lettuce. And one more benefit to the covering is it's early in the morning, and hopefully will reduce transplant shock. I have the watering wand in my hand. I'm going to turn it on in a little bit, and I just want to show you how much water goes through the fabric. And as you can see, it works pretty well. Now it's time to plant up the other half, and then we'll be done. Now everything's watered in nicely, and we'll recover everything up. And I just want to show you the end where it's just the paper and the water lines holding it down, and I have some plants planted in that. I just want to show you this too. By the time I got done planting the other half of the row, that this side of the row, the paper is starting to dry out already. It doesn't take too long. So we're all done planting and everything's covered back up again. So my last step is, you can see that I have some bare soil on both sides. It looks like soil, but it's really about a 1/4 inch still of leaf mold that's about 2.5 years old. It's not keeping the weeds down anymore, so what I'll do is I'm going to throw some annual ryegrass on top, and that will take root, and I can cut it if I wish, but that will keep a lot of the weeds down, and it will grow very fast. Probably within a week or so, we'll be up about 1 inch. So if you're wondering through this whole thing, why am I spending so much money to do this, is for simple reason, it's not that much. It's $200. It's less than $200 to do 100 feet. I know originally I said it's 80 feet long, but I added another cattle panel on the back, and I have 96 feet. So I have about 100 plants in there on one side, and then I can do the other side with another 100 plants. So I have 200 total plants in there. If I go to sell them wholesale wise, they're about $1 each. I can recoup my money back in the first year, and that's great business 101. If you can recoup your money the first year of applying a machinery or a tool or anything else, either the first year, and get it paid back, that's just very good business practice. Now, of course, I have to sell them all, but I think I can do that, and especially at that price, and I'm looking forward to harvesting them. I'm standing on the right hand side of the row cover, and today's Sunday, I planted the rye grass seeds on Wednesday before we got a rainstorm. We just had another rainstorm last night, and you can see here, it's only been 4 days, and we have some good growth already. And I'm going to say they're about anywhere from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch tall, and now they'll take off, especially with this kind of heat, and then we'll cover that soil and we'll crowd out any weeds, so it gives me a good ground cover, and it works well, and they can grow up to 1 foot tall, smothering weeds out. And I also planted some sunflowers in here too, which I see coming up also. Thanks. And you can see here that I have my sunflowers growing already, and they were planted 4 days ago also too with the annual ryegrass, and hopefully they'll grow at the same rate or even a little bit faster, hopefully, so the annual ryegrass doesn't shade them out, so they continue to grow very well. And all this planting of the sunflower and the annual ryegrass is going to take carbon out of the atmosphere and put it back in the ground where it should be. One, for cleaner air, but two, is that's what the plants live on, and also the soil. That is the key ingredient in your soil, is carbon. And one more reason I'm going to be using the paper probably more in the future, it's harder and harder for me to get leaves anymore, actually from a clean source, is for the simple reason is that more and more people in the township are using them. I don't know if it's due to my videos or word of mouth, but it's becoming more and more difficult to get enough leaves to cover my soil every year. And if you remember, here I am in field 1. This is where I planted all my brassicas, and I'm replanting again, because we harvest all these. And also too, you can see is, if you look back in the other video, the leaves were about maybe say anywhere from 12 to 16 inches tall, and now they're down to about 4 inches. So another reason why possibly using the paper in the future. So with this new system, if it works, I'm going to save about $12 because I'm spending about $8 in the plastic conduit to do 20 feet, and that's a little bit longer than the cattle panel, which is 16 feet, and the cattle panels cost me about $20. So my first step in making this was taking a 1/2 inch PVC electrical conduit and laying it on the ground. Now simply just take a clamp and put it about halfway, and this way the conduit doesn't roll to the left or right, and you always have top dead center so you can drill your holes. I measured in 3 inches on both ends and drilled my first holes on both ends. Then after I had those first 2 holes done, then I measured from the beginning, where it starts at the 1 inch, and I measured in 30 inches and 60 inches and 90 inches, and I drilled 3 more holes on top. Depending on which wire hoop you buy or the size, just measure the same gauge as the wire to the same size as drill bit. And you can see here that the wire goes right inside the plastic tubing or conduit, but the problem is it slides up and down, so when you push it into the ground, that's going to slide up and down. It's not going to keep that paper tight to the ground. So to solve that problem, we're going to use, this is waterproof taping. It's aluminum foil with a very sticky substance on the back. Now just take the tape and cut it to about 7 inches long. and then cut that into 4 strips. You want the metal wire to go in the ground at least 6 inches, and the conduit's a 1/2 inch thick. So I just took a regular straw and I cut it to 6.5 inches long. And what I'm just going to do is slide it on, go all the way to the end that it comes out, back off, and then I know I'm at 6.5 inches all the time. And then I'm just going to take the tape and put it on that spot and just wrap it around. I needed 2 hands to do that, so it comes out nice. What you can see is that it gives that nice little area that basically when that pipe comes up to this edge now, that it's not going to go past it and is going to hold it tight to the ground. And since it's waterproof tape, it will last for years. I've had it on my greenhouses and it's still there, and it's probably about 10 years old. I have both PVC conduits laying on the ground, and I have the wire hoops installed on the one side, on the left hand side here, and then I'll just push them in on the other side. It's really simple to do. It holds down the paper very nicely, and I'll finish it up and I'll show you. It installs nice and easy, just like that. I wish to thank you for watching, and if you haven't done so, please subscribe, and I'm looking forward to making another video for you. Thank you.